Deep into off-season mode for Duke University men's basketball, but still plenty of conversation about John Shire and the program that he's building. This team is always forward-thinking. Big news in the life of Duke basketball that we'll discuss on today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils. Let's get right to it.
Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, the host of Locked On Blue Devils. Glad to be with you here on this Wednesday. On today's show, I'm so excited to be joined by Dustin Chu from the Devil's Den podcast. We'll talk about Duke basketball as they get set for an exciting offseason. The John Shire era is officially getting underway. I want to let you know to follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. You can follow me on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. Make sure you follow and subscribe Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever you get your podcasts, as you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it comes out each day. Be sure to also subscribe to our Locked On Blue Devils YouTube page to watch the show daily. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Devils your first watch and listen each and every day. As I said, so excited to welcome in Dustin Chu, a Devil's Den podcast co-host, a lifelong Duke basketball fan who's here with me to talk all things Duke hoops. Dustin, the time is greatly appreciated. How's the summer going for you? How are you today, man?
Well, I appreciate you having me, JJ. It's been warm already, but as I've mentioned in the podcast, I'm a golfer. I'm out there every weekend. So, yeah, life's good. No complaints here.
No doubt about it. I mean, a lot to be happy and grateful for here as we get into summer. We may be missing Duke basketball, but it'll be here. It'll be around the corner as it's a big time for the Blue Devils as they're transitioning into the John Shire era and that sort of thing. Again, I mentioned you've got the co-host role with the Devil's Den podcast. Tell the Locked On Blue Devils listeners and Duke community guys that might not have heard you before. Give us a little bit of your Duke background, Dustin.
So I just a normal fan like all of you guys. Love anything I can get my hands on relating to Duke basketball. I've been watching Duke basketball probably since '89. I think was my first kind of memories of some of the players, Danny Ferry, but really more that 90-91 year when I was 5-6 years old. But grew up here in Charlotte and just recently with a couple buddies, Josh Smith and Raul, who we've been talking Duke basketball through social media for a good 10 years every day. We have this message thread that's a couple million comments long now. We decided, hey, we talk to ourselves about this all the time. Why not, jump on a podcast? And the opportunity came up to revamp the Devil's Den podcast, which originally was hosted by Chris Bunn. It was a great host, did a great job, but COVID era kind of kicked in and that went away, and we've kind of brought it back and rebooted it, and we enjoy doing it. We do it for free. Like I said, we're just volunteers, but that's how much we love Duke basketball and anything we can talk about Duke basketball.
And the Devil's Den has been such a staple in the Duke community, right? A part of the 24/7 Sports CBS family over there. You talk Steve Clark, John Watson, Adam Rowe, all the big names that you hear when it comes to Duke basketball. And here you guys are, these fans kind of revamping, revitalizing that conversation. And I'm always in such support of the other podcasts that are out there in the Duke basketball world and community. So when you start, what was the biggest surprise maybe that you guys had as you started to kick off your version of the Devil's Den podcast?
Well, JJ, I can tell you're a pro at this. So, for us, we weren't broadcasting majors, anything, so it was just more getting comfortable talking on a microphone or on camera. So that was the hardest thing. We knew we could talk basketball once we got into it, and that's kind of what we do. We just like to chat amongst each other. But of course, as you mentioned, off air, we've had some guests on. We had Dave Bradley on today's podcast, the creative director of Duke men's basketball. It does a phenomenal job. If anybody here has ever watched anything from the Duke official account on Facebook, Twitter, he's the man that's behind that. So we were really excited to have him. And yeah, we're just three normal guys that love to chat Duke basketball.
A terrific conversation. As you mentioned, that podcast is available right now wherever you get them. You could go find it. You guys chatted with Dave Bradley, who does such a is the creative genius behind all of Duke's marketing and branding and the Duke Blue Planet stories that are there and just content that we're always kind of searching for and that sort of thing. Did you learn anything in your conversation with Dave Bradley? Because that's my big thing. When I'm listening to it, it's like, I don't know that there's as much to learn because it feels like I'm consuming every single thing that they put out there. But then you sit there and you think about it and it's like, this idea had to come from somewhere. And it truly is impressive to hear Dave talk the way that he did.
Yeah, so right out of the gate, we were asking him about the origins of Duke Blue Planet because I always kind of assumed that was Dave's brainchild. They started the website. They started just, that was kind of the time of reality TV. So they were just doing small videos of John and Gerald in their dorm room or just, little off the court stuff at first. But actually, Duke Blue Planet was started under Coach Snyder. It started out as a newsletter for recruiting. And Dave was kind of handed it and turned it into what it is today, which is, as all you guys are familiar with, is one of the biggest recruiting tools Duke basketball has. I mean, we've really taken off because of everything that Dave's done, not to belittle Coach K. Obviously, people want to come play for Coach K, but Dave had a big hand in making Duke the cool school again, I think, especially those early videos with Nolan. We got to know the players a lot more. So big shout out to Dave for everything he's done because I don't know if we'd be at the spot we're at without him.
No kidding. I mean, and just to hear the stories again of behind the scenes access, because it's one thing to watch Duke basketball players or any player of your sports on screen in the game performing and that sort of thing. It takes it to a whole nother level when you get to see them off the court and kind of see their personality shine forward and that sort of. And as fans, Dustin, that's all we're looking for is right. Like, I want to be a little bit relatable to these guys. I understand
Sure.
I'm not the McDonald's All-American. I'm not 6'8" or can dunk on command at any given moment, but maybe there are some goofy sides or elements of them that we can relate to.
100%. If any of you guys are familiar, Marshall Plumlee, him on the court, this, no frills guy. He does what he's supposed to do, but off the court, this guy's a jokester. And just to get to know that side of his personality is a great thing that we have, and we should be thankful for everything they do.
So Duke basketball dominates the social media world, and it's been something that we've known. If you're heavy into the Duke community, this. Duke kind of raised the flag, and they let people know, hey, we're elite at this. There were more numbers that came out over the weekend that spoke to that, just how unbelievably dominant it is. Like, what do you think is the big impact of that from a fan's perspective to know that Duke is so good at kind of branding its program?
Well, I mean, obviously, we see what it brings on the recruiting side of things. The last several years, if we've not had the number one class, number two class. So I think that kind of branding has made us that much more, valuable for some of these recruits because they know they can come in, they're going to be exposed, you're going to be on national TV every night. And to get that kind of exposure and build your own brand that can go with you, once you leave Duke University, it's a major thing to have.
So the numbers that they put out there, Instagram interactions over the last 5 years, Duke men's basketball, 138 million. And then they were able to total up the conferences, the Big Ten right behind it, 132 million, the SEC, 108 million, the ACC, the conference Duke resides in, at 96 million interactions. And again, that number for Duke is 138. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish and that sort of thing. And to put the brand of Duke basketball out there, it is certainly elevated. You look at Duke Blue Planet taking off and the one and done era, it kind of goes hand in hand with the timelines and how those things came together.
100%. And I would also throw in Coach K's time with Team USA.
Yeah.
For me, I remember when Coach K first took over that job, there are a lot of fans that were not very happy about it because here's a guy that's going to spend his summers with NBA players rather than being on the recruiting trail, working on getting the players he needs for his program. And in those first couple years, we missed on a lot of big name recruits. I don't know if you guys remember, but we missed Greg Monroe. We missed Patrick Patterson, and to look back on it, it's unthinkable today that we would offer guys like this and they would pass on it because of what we've become in that time. And I think social media coming to be what it is, Duke Blue Planet, like you mentioned, along with the one and done era, and then you add in the prestige of Coach K, can tell them, hey, I coached Kobe, I coached LeBron, I coached all these guys. So all that came together at the perfect time, and this is what it's became. And as a fan, I'm thankful for it. I've got to watch RJ and Zion and Tatum and Kyrie, and the list goes on, and be a fan of these guys even after they leave Duke into the NBA.
The dominance is certainly continuing for Duke, and we know that's going to continue in the Jon Scheyer era. Let's talk a little bit about that more specifically. And Dustin,
Sure.
We're going to do that coming up after our first break here on Locked On Blue Devils. Again, you're listening to a Wednesday edition of Locked On Blue Devils, and our show today is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports development news and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup. We've got the NBA Finals tonight. Game 3, Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics, the former Dookie, at home taking on Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. All the lines there at betonline.net. Also, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals going on. Major League Baseball, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. As we welcome you back into today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside Dustin Shue, a Devil's Den podcast co-host. Yesterday, we saw an exciting press release for Duke basketball that Jon Scheyer announced. They've got a new general manager for Duke men's basketball. Rachel Baker enters the mix as Duke's new GM. They've never had this position before. She's got plenty of experience as she will help enhance their skill sets, capitalize on strategic partnerships, including NIL opportunities, and navigate being student athletes, the school announced. Again, Nike and EYBL experience at the NBA level. This is just so forward-thinking. It's unbelievable that Duke made a move like this.
It's been described as a home run, and I think you can't really put it anywhere else. You think about the moves that John's already made in the short time that he's been the head coach. I mean, not only the recruits that he's gotten, but the additions that he's made. You've added Ja Lucas from Kentucky. I thought that was a great hire. You pull the Elon coach out to be a special assistant, and then you make this move, which I don't know if there's another college GM in the country. Yeah. Like I said, it's forward thinking. We're in a whole another era of college basketball. And I'm just excited to see where John takes it, because obviously he's playing chess and not checkers, right?
Yeah, as Brendan Marks of The Athletic put it on Twitter yesterday, and again, he's been on the podcast so frequently here on Locked On Blue Devils, it's youth and it's connections that Jon Scheyer has been so great. And to have a move like this, again, Baker coming in to take on this general manager role, to have the recruiting ties and connections. Like, Duke already dominates recruiting, so why not make it even stronger? Duke already had the top recruiter in the nation in Jon Scheyer. Now he's going to the head coach position, and he says, all right, well, I'll go to Kentucky. Who's that guy? His last name's Lucas on the bench over there. He's number 2 in the entire country. And as you mentioned, Ja Lucas enters the fold. And next thing you know, they've got the top 2 recruiters now in the nation.
Yeah, I mean, it's been remarkable what John's been able to do. Like I said, recruiting and then building the staff. And then again with Baker today, or yesterday, I should say, just somebody to kind of handle all that stuff that has a little bit of experience. I imagine that she'll also be helping out with a lot of the NIL stuff. We navigate that because you think about it, you're down in Auburn. These state schools with these huge, vast networks of alumni, it's something. Duke has some really extremely rich alumni, but it's still a small school. It's a smaller network. So to have somebody from the corporate world that can kind of tie all that in for us to help us compete with these collectives, for lack of a better word, I guess, I think it's going to be special for us. I think it was a really, really smart move.
I'm already a big fan of everything that John Shire's been able to do. It gets us super excited about the upcoming season. Obviously, recruiting is going really well. There was a big conversation on the internet about whether or not Trevor Keels would come back for his sophomore season. Is A.J. Green going to transfer in from Northern Iowa? And then out of left field, Tyrese Proctor reclassifies and comes in to really help solidify the roster. And then not to mention at that wing spot, somebody like Jaden Shute, who's a top 50 player in the country coming in. People that listen to Locked On Blue Devils are going to be like, JJ's going to say this again. And yes, I am. Dustin, I was a little frustrated that it felt like some of the conversation was dismissive about what Jaden Shute is going to be as a freshman, when I want to remind folks that anywhere else in America, if a top 50 freshman comes into your program, you're going to be jumping from joy and excited about what he could bring. And now with Proctor and Shute at the wing, with Jeremy Roach and some of the other guys that are going to contribute in this freshman year, like Duke's still really damn talented, and they're going to have a successful season coming up.
Yeah, well, the cupboard's not bare. I mean, we're losing a lot of guys, but we're bringing some guys in. As far as Shute goes, you're right. Any other program in America would love a top 50. And I'm not saying that dismiss them. For one, we don't know how John Shire is going to coach.
Yeah.
Historically, in a Coach K coach team, a guy like Jaden coming in that range, that's kind of like the Alex O'Connell, Jordan Tucker range, might not get as many minutes as they would maybe at a lesser school. But I think the guy's got potential. I'm hoping that we're having him as a 3-4 year guy. Can definitely shoot the ball. I think he's going to have to adjust to the pace and the strength of D1 athletes. But once he can get his feet under him like that, I think he's going to be a great addition for the program.
All right, so we're playing Locked On Blue Devils bingo all of a sudden, Dustin, and I was sitting there thinking, racking my brain, the podcast has been out for over a year, and you just dropped Jordan Tucker's name for the first time ever on the show. Congrats to you, man.
Okay,
like, that's
I appreciate
big time
that.
there.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple more if we need them.
But. Yes, a lot of commit.
Has anybody mentioned Oleg Chiz?
No, we haven't got there yet,
right,
but that's a really good one. That is a really good one.
Yeah.
Duke's always had a bit of an overseas and foreign connection there, and we're getting that. And Tyrese Proctor, a guy from Australia, is now going to enter the fold, much like Oleg Chiz did from Poland, I believe it was.
Yep. Jack White. We had we had Jack White from Australia. So we'll see what Tyrese song he brings out for CTC. I think Jack White came out to the Minute Work, the Land Down Under, whatever song. Yeah. So props to him.
I saw some of the on Duke Twitter. Trevor Keels had the NIL partnership with Outback Steakhouse this past season. And it feels like that's the perfect opportunity for Outback to call up Tyrese Proctor. Hey, you're a top 10 recruit in the entire country from Australia. Maybe this down under Outback Steakhouse thing, maybe that'd be a good little marketing.
I'm sure he says Bloomin' Onion the best of anybody on the team. So, yeah.
Yeah, he wins that award.
He wins
for sure.
that.
So, all right. So give me your overall thoughts on this roster now that Duke knows what they're going to look like this upcoming season. Really talented bigs coming in. You're obviously losing a pair of great bigs in Paulo after his freshman season and the emergence that Mark Williams had as a sophomore. Give me your overall assessment of the team.
Well, keep in mind that Grandison is still looking to visit, so we could still be adding another potential wing player. I love having Jeremy Roach back as a junior point guard. Anybody that knows Coach K's program, and I'm sure Shire is going to be the same way, starts with the point guard. That's the captain on the floor. So to have that guy that's, it's tough having a freshman point guard a lot of times, unless you're a Tyus Jones type guy. So having that steady hand to kind of lead the show. Derek on the wing, I think, is going to be a fabulous two-way guy. I've already been reading reports of him at K Academy just locking people up. Mark Mitchell he's going to be a slasher. I think he's going to be really great for us, cutting off the ball, grabbing rebounds. Flip and Lively at the 4 and 5 spots, maybe both at the 5, changing in and out. I think we've got a lot of versatility. I think that's what I'm most excited about, is just seeing what John does, how he plays with all that versatility. And then hopefully Jaden and Jeremy and Proctor can give us a little bit of spacing with their shooting as well.
Yeah, that's going to be important and necessary for the Duke team as they get set for the upcoming season as the John Shire era gets underway. All right, let's take our last break of today's show. We'll begin to wrap things up on the other side here on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show today is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. I want to tell you about the caramel brownie flavor. It's amazing. Don't you just love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? It's so good. What if I told you that you could get all of that in one, plus you're looking at 17 grams of protein? You're in luck because the caramel brownie bars are available now at Built.com. You got to act fast because they're a fan favorite. You want to get them while you can. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. Again, every single Built bar is covered in 100% real chocolate. Right now, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15 at LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. It is our final segment here on this Wednesday edition of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside Dustin Shue, a Devil's Den podcast co-host. You mentioned being a subscriber, a part of the Devil's Den community. If you would, kind of promote your podcast one more time, Dustin, where people can find it and kind of a rundown of what you guys have been up to lately.
Yes, so you can find us on Apple Podcasts, I believe on Spotify as well. I know I get mine through Apple. But we're also at thedevilsden.com, message boards there. A great community, get a lot of inside analysis, recruiting info. So if you're just a Duke junkie like most of us are, if you're listening to this podcast on a Wednesday in the middle of summer, then I imagine you're a perfect fit for thedevilsden.com. So you can check out the boards there. There's a premium board, there's a free board. But yeah, us guys, we're continuing to just kind of follow the news of the summer, and we'll be bringing out some episodes maybe once or twice a month. It won't be very frequent, not as frequent as you're doing this, but we're hoping to bring on some guests that people would like to hear from. So just check us out whenever you get a chance, and rate and review, subscribe. We'd appreciate it.
I'm fascinated by your history being a Duke basketball fan, Dustin, and just in the brief conversations that we had and follow you on Twitter, you're as diehard as they come when it comes to Duke basketball. About 10 or so years older than me, Dustin. So I want to know from your perspective, talk to me about, from the fans' perspective, sort of the evolution of college basketball recruiting in terms of following it and how much it really has developed over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, obviously you're not following recruiting, right. But, I had it made pretty well when I was a kid. I think we went to 7 Final Fours in 9 years.
Not a whole lot to complain about there.
Yeah, a little spoiled, I would say. I'm one of those spoiled fans. But, I went through the 99 class when you had Shane Battier and you had Elton Brand. That's 2 National Players of the Year in the same class at the same school. Of course, Elton was the National Player of the Year as a sophomore. Battier makes it as a senior. But to go from that, and then a couple of years later, you're getting guys like JJ and Sheldon, they're coming in. Then, like I said, we had a little lull there for a couple of years in 07, 08, 09. We got Kyle Singler, one of my favorite players, just a warrior. He was a top 5 player in his class. That was the OJ Mayo and Kevin Love class, I believe. So that was a strong class. And then, of course, things took off. We get Kyrie, you get Austin. You start bringing in these just stud freshmen that can do it all from day one. It wasn't like that when I was a lot younger. Your freshmen had to wait their turn unless they were Grant Hill, uber talented, something like that. So it's just been crazy wild to see where it's went from, 1989 to 2022.
I definitely remember when Scout.com was the number one place to go to kind of follow as recruiting looked over a decade ago. And now every place in the world is trying to do their best hiring these great recruiting reporters to kind of keep you up to date on who's on campus, who's visiting. And that's that part of it has really changed as well, because from the fans' perspective, and as the social media kind of ties into all of it as well, you really are in the know as to who your team is targeting, whereas it used to kind of be a bit of a secret and it just wasn't as easily accessible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do remember those scout days, rivals, everything back in the day. And now, like you said, you jump on Twitter, and you can just pretty much just read it off of a list. On somebody's got their top 20 prospects of so and so class now. So it's definitely changed with the advent and the blowing up of social media, I'd say.
So we've got, you mentioned the roster might not entirely be set. And again, I do want to touch on that. We're here in the off-season mode, so 3 shows a week here on Locked On Blue Devils. And Jacob Grandison is a graduate transfer coming over from Illinois, 2 seasons playing at Holy Cross, 2 seasons playing for the Fighting Illini, 6'6", originally from the Oakland, California area. And I think what's so exciting is that this guy was a 41% three-point shooter this past season. And then when someone says 41%, you want to make sure that there's a good number of volume shots that are out there.
Yeah.
Well, how about 4.5 attempts per game for Granderson? That's a pretty good number. And it seems like he's going to be coming to visit Duke and possibly could be another addition.
67% from the corner. 3.
Look at that.
If you get Tyrese Proctor or Derek slashing in with the ball, hey, here's a guy spotting up in the corner.
No kidding.
67%. I'll live with that guy shooting all day there from there. So excited about the possibility.
And I think, Dustin, I've seen a couple of clips. I could be wrong, and I'm going to have to go and verify this as soon as we get done talking here. I believe Grandison is another lefty. And as a lefty myself, that jump shot is just the purest and most beautiful thing to look at.
I'd have to trying to think of it now, because typically as a lefty, I notice it right away.
He's right-handed.
If he is,
he's right-handed.
Okay. All right.
I was
You're
mistaken.
About to make him my favorite player before you got it.
I was mistaken. I knew it before I started to spread lies out here. Jacob Grandison is right-handed.
All right. Well, we fact-checked ourselves in real time. So that's good catch.
Are we going to have any lefties on next year's team?
I don't believe so.
Not unless so
Bernard still has 2 years of eligibility left.
Yeah, we'll go find
him
and bring him back from the NBA. Exactly. 2023 recruiting with Tyrese Proctor coming in a year early. Obviously, that's a new scholarship that you can look at. I know Xavier Booker is the man that's playing for Team USA alongside Jared McCain. Booker is left-handed. I feel pretty certain about that one.
I like seeing big lefties.
Yes.
Like, Julius Randle, that's
right.
fun to watch.
Vernon Carey.
I believe
Marvin Bagley the third.
Bagley was lefty. Yep. So, exactly. So if so, bring them on.
Are you left-handed as well?
I'm a southpaw.
Look at this. Look at this, man. This is perfect.
On the golf course, people tell me I'm standing on the wrong side of the ball. So,
Dustin, this has been awesome. I hope this hasn't been too much trouble at all for you. I really appreciate you coming on the program. One more time, give us a plug for the Devil's Den. And if people want to follow you, where can they do that?
Follow me on Twitter. It's Dustin_Shoe. I'll be honest, I'm not on Twitter all that much, not very vocal on Twitter. But yeah, check us out at thedevilsden.com. I'm on the board. I think you'll be able to spot my name on the board pretty easily. So again, Apple Podcasts, I believe Spotify, about anywhere you can find a podcast. The Devil's Den podcast should be on there.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast today, Dustin. We'll do it again soon, okay?
JJ, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That's Dustin Shoe, a Devil's Den podcast co-host, joining us here on today's program. And that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Blue Devils. So much fun. First time I was able to chop it up with Dustin, and I hope that you walk away a big fan of that podcast. I'm serious. Their conversation with Dave Bradley, the creative, the marketing, the guru behind the Duke basketball brand, was such a good conversation. You've got to go check it out wherever you get podcasts. Leave the Devil's Den podcast a 5-star rating and review. It means a lot for them. It helps them out. And while you're doing it, do it for us here at Locked On Blue Devils as well. That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Blue Devils. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.